everyone. Welcome to our next Within the Cauldron podcast episode. So, tonight we have a very special guest with us, Lord Elith, the Wandering Witch. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so for tonight, we hosting, it'll be both me, Amber, hi guys, and Amy. All right, so Elith, let's kind of get to the basics. Okay.
Yeah,
When
sure.
did
How's it
you
going?
find out you were a witch?
I would say probably around like the age of like 26. I was probably like a pretty late bloomer. But that's when things started to get pretty interesting for me. I don't think I like fully took on like that title. I feel like I kind of bounced around between like different titles or like vocations, I guess. But yeah, I would say around 26.
Okay. And what was it? I guess like what was that kind of like coming to moment where you decided
hmm
like this defines me?
Yeah. So I think what it was is like when I was like 26, that was also during like 2020. So the
Mhm.
world was kind of like supposedly like ending for like the eighth time.
Mhm.
So at that point I had really kind of decided to venture off on my own and really find my own answers to my own questions. Like even starting as simply as like why is blue the color blue or what even is blue? And then finding out through experience versus just someone giving me an answer. And to be honest, what happened was like I would say like my perspective on things really changed after I had a few experiences during 2020. I had tried like a couple different psychedelics, and within those experiences, more experiences came even after like that initial like those initial moments, I guess. So I would suppose that like it probably started off with like a little bit of shamanism, and then there were also interesting things that happened like around that time too. I came into contact with a woman who she had kind of opened me up to like different energies and stuff. She would do different readings on me, and I would have like very like visceral experiences. And I don't know. I feel like I kind of completed like the main quest line in life like way too early. Like I got in a house at 22. I was dating somebody. I had a brand new car. I was also like, in college and everything. And I was showing up to my career thinking like, okay, like this is it. Like this is it till the day I die. Like, I don't want this. I had been in
Mhm.
the church for about like 20 years, and I remember like the last pastor that I was under discipleship with, I mentioned to him, I was like, I don't feel like I can hear God or interact with God. And I'm kind of envious of people that have that like epiphanous moment where they're like, I know, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, well, I mean, I guess be careful what you ask for because, well, I got it. It didn't show up in the way that I thought that it did. And it's been an adventure kind of like ever since. But I guess like following like, each synchronicity to the next or each little side quest to the next is like the thing that I guess like really fulfills me, and I just haven't turned back since.
Nice. It's it's interesting how I guess each of us find our way to the Lord, the
hmm
lady, whoever we go to or who we're drawn to, or even both. And it usually comes in ways that we least expect it. I mean,
hmm
I don't know if you know a lot about me and Amy's kind of background, but we were raised
Yeah,
within the way, and even both
we
of
didn't
us
have
have
a choice. Like us
like
going to church was like it was like a sin to my mother. She's like, "How dare you betray us?"
oh no.
So
um
it was
but
completely
we
different.
still had our own kind of like discovery path where it was like
hmm
we still had to find it.
Yeah.
Um, like you can have God presented to you in so many different ways, or the God is presented to you, but it's there's always that moment where it's like your eyes are opened all of a sudden.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to get into that. So I think the initial one was I don't know, it was interesting. I had met some I feel very like influential characters at the time, little to my knowledge at that time. Um, One of them, it was just we always had very visceral experiences whenever we were together. It didn't really matter like I guess like what was going on. But the main thing was that one time we had decided to, try psilocybin, and what
Mhm.
happened was that I don't think it was like a crazy amount or anything like that, but like for me it's just like the hues of things like were more vibrant, and people's eyes would like always kind of face me, even if they weren't looking at me. And it was like I was just constantly like being observed. And I had remembered that, you know, I mentioned to them that I had a pressure on my forehead, like, you know, in the position of the third eye. I had a pressure there for at least like a week, and I wasn't sure what that was. And they looked at me and they said, I can see it. And I said, what? They're like, I can see your third eye, it's green. And then they reached forward and they put their hand on my head and they put their thumb in the center of my forehead. And then I had like closed my eyes, and then I just went into, I don't even know how to explain it. It was a whole different visceral experience, I suppose. I think the only way I can equate it is like if you can like consciously astral project like completely outside of your body within like a conscious moment. Or it was the equivalent of like a DMT experience. And it was very interesting because when I would open my eyes and come back, I would be exhaling like very deeply, like I had just returned. And at one point I looked at them and I reached over and I did the same thing to them. And then we both started to get visions. And then at one point in time, we had even put our foreheads together, and it just got more and more intense. And then like after that day, I started to see like the different variations in which like I had seen them in past lives. And in one of them, they killed me. That was super interesting to see that one. Um, but yeah, I would say pretty much ever since like that moment, it has always been like on the hunt from one thing to the next. And I've even tried to like replicate that experience with like other people, both in like a normal way, but also like in a shamanic way. And it seems like I can activate something in other people, but not a lot of people can, I guess, get me to like see it that depth. So it's been kind of like a solo journey ever since. Sadly, that person, they kind of went down their own road, and you know, that's fine. And I kind of just continued to pursue.
Interesting. Yeah, I have it's kind of a, I won't go into too many details, but kind of an experience that I had with an ex-partner where we were in a long-term relationship. We were together for quite a few years, and it was like we weren't actually even on anything. And we had a moment where it was like our faces were changing. Like just,
Sounds
it
like
was like it
scrying.
was revealing our past. The way that we interpreted it was as if we were revealing our past lives to each other.
Oh,
But we were
okay.
just like staring into each other's faces, and it was like the facial features just started changing, like the cheekbones and the eye positioning and the like chin. And it was the interesting part, I think, that like made it even more real, like where you started to like question it, like, am I like, what is it? And then he said the same thing, but he said it before I did. So it was kind of that moment where it was like, you know, like where you're just like, how did I make that connection?
Oh
And
yeah, I mean, I've had telepathy with
is there
somebody before
again?
too.
So it's yeah, you know, it's those things where you search for that way, because there was like that truth, and you just want to keep going down it. You want to discover it more, but it's like, how do you get back to that point?
Yeah, it's interesting too, because it's like I feel like I don't know. I mean, like I was never into, I guess, like a lot of I'll just say like muggle ways, I guess. Like I never really like, I never cared for football. I never cared to like watch sports. Like I'll play it, but I was never really into those things. Like a lot of times, like I would just kind of occupy my mind with like video games and stuff. But otherwise, like I grew up in the woods. We heated the house with a wood stove, so I was like constantly outside. Like I played with my imagination until I was probably like 19. It wasn't really until I moved out and then like started like working a lot that those things like really started to kind of go away. And then it's like having to rediscover those things and like reintegrate like different like aspects of like the self. Like I've done like QHHT therapy, like quantum hypnosis and everything. I saw past lives in that. I was a character back then even. And to me it's interesting because I feel like as per right now, I am trying to integrate like every level of the self that I have like ever been. And I feel like if you had told me all these things, you know, like I would be doing this, or I would have like these tattoos on my face, or I would have tapped into like different entities in different areas or something like that. If you had told me these things like 10 years ago, I would have told you were absolutely like out of your mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of those, you never, looking back, sometimes things don't quite, like you're almost bewildered by how things have progressed in certain directions, but it's also that moment where you also kind of know that you're where you're supposed to be, or you're headed to where you're supposed to be.
I feel like I've always been really lucky because all of my family are witches, so I've always had someone to lean on about gifts or like an experience that I've had that I can't explain, or experiences I've had with friends, because I've had moments where like I do a lot of I have a lot of dream magic, so like I've been able to communicate to people through dreams like right away, and they've been able to like I've had a lot of like paranormal stuff happen to me. I've been seeing spirits since I've been a small child, and like I was being attacked when I was asleep, and I told my friend and they woke me up, you know, like, or I've been able to communicate to people across the country. I'm just known things, and they're like, Amy, you're freaking me out. I'm like, you're welcome.
I've bilocated into people's rooms before. That was interesting.
Yeah. So I've always just had like things like that happen to me, because so that's my normal. But if I talk to a lot of my friends who are Muggle or whatever, they can't relate. So they're like,
yeah,
you're strange.
It's hard sometimes. Yeah, it's like I want to open up, and I want to be able to like express like all these dimensions like of me, and it also feels as though like even somebody mentioned to me, there's like you have like the outward embodiment of the shadow, but I can tell you're still like working trying to integrate like different levels of like the shadow like within yourself. And I think a lot of it is too, it's like I like to be a safe space for like a lot of other people to like step into their authentic selves, but then I notice a lot of times it's like at the cost of me even. But yeah, like I haven't had like a ton of people to like talk to about like abilities and stuff, and like some people I can, but like it feels, even though as like, you know, I don't mean to sound rude, but it's like, you know, they're here and I'm trying to talk about a subject that's like up over here, you know what I mean? And then it's just like I can't, I'm trying to relate to you. I'm trying to bring down like the message like as low as I can. But I also feel that like for people that just like haven't been like initiated or something like that, you know, it's always going to be like super difficult. Because like for me, I've noticed like there's a lot of entities that just kind of like naturally just kind of come to me. But I haven't done deity work in probably like a good like year or two. It's just like things get like really intense, and I start to notice like just how malleable the fabric of reality can really become. And you know what I mean? And it's like, it's hard to, I guess, like take that in and embody it when you have to kind of like pretend that you're still something else, even though it's like, that's most definitely like a mask. But yeah,
I feel like a lot
wild.
of the times that I can't like fully share myself to people because they don't understand. They never will. And that's fine. You know?
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times it's like people, you know, like they can only meet you as deeply as they met themselves. And a lot of people, they haven't, you know what I mean? And there's nothing right or wrong with that, because ignorance is bliss. Because it's like, at the same time, it's like, you know, I can't do certain things. I can't make certain moves because it's like, I already overstand a lot of these things where it's like, okay, if I do this, this would be a disservice to me. Or it's like, well, I already know that this energy and this dynamic is kind of fucked, so maybe I shouldn't be around this anymore. Where it's like sometimes you like lose people, and a lot of times there's like a misunderstanding, or it's like I'm still trying to grow, and you either want to stay this way or like take yourself down. And it's like, I love you, but I cannot associate with you when I watch you hurt yourself.
Yeah. Well, I like how you worded. How exactly did you say it? You can only meet with someone with how far they've met themselves.
Yes.
I think you might have worded it slightly better, but like that. And I never really thought about it, but it's, yeah, you know, like you can only go so deep into conversations about like those certain experiences and the way that you feel and the way that your interactions with any type of magical, spiritual, universal type thing. And it's hard because you can't really get that communication. Like, you can't express it, I guess, necessarily.
Yeah.
They can't.
Like, it's even hard, like, with, like, I've been raised with witches in the pagan community, but still with me with having abilities, it's still hard in that community because people who don't have those abilities don't understand you. You're still,
I've gotten kicked out of groups.
They won't tell you every way to protect yourself because they don't want to, like, they want to shelter you, and you're like, I need to know how to protect myself and all this stuff, but they still, you'll be shocked, like they still put you in like this little bubble.
Little bit of gatekeeping, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, and you know, like even as like a Pisces too, it's like I'm extremely like intuitive, I'm very like in tune with like emotions. Like I've had to like really kind of integrate and put into union like, you know, the masculine and the feminine and the light and the dark and all this other kind of stuff. But I think the thing that's the biggest disservice to me is, like I said, it's like I cannot embody the fullest version of me at all times like I would like to. So it's like I go to work, right? And a lot of times it's like, you know, some people I can tell like they're perceiving, but like only a little bit. And I'm still trying to plant the seeds. And then with other people, it's like I have to step back into like almost, you know, macho man, like, oh, I was in construction for 10 years. Like, oh, did you see the game last night? Like when I say that stuff, it's like I don't even give a shit, but it's like I have to like kind of make myself like accessible to them and relate to them, because I've noticed, especially too with like a lot of like, you know, my tattoos and stuff, like my eyes and like my face and stuff, it's like it's almost like it's like polarizing. Like sometimes like until I like talk to someone, like their eyes and their energy are, they're like, who is this? Like even what is this? You know what I mean? And it's not until I'm like, hey, like I'm human too, you know what I mean? That they're just kind of like, oh, I can relax a little bit now. And sometimes it's interesting to watch in men too, because like they seem to be the ones that are like the most like uncomfortable with it. And to me, that's like really surprising. There's like this like a mix of like shame and guilt, but also like I don't know if I need to like watch my six with this dude around. I don't know, it's been interesting. And I noticed that like after I tattooed my eyes, which that was me following a whole other like synchronicity in and of itself. Like that even changed like my energy, and it was hard for like the first couple weeks to even like look at myself in the mirror again, because I was like, this is the new self. Like I have to be able to comfortably embody this. So it's like, you want to talk about like a self-love journey? Holy shit. Like I had to like, you know, go through so much shit, get good with loving myself, and then all of a sudden it's like I'm changing all these things, and then it's like I got to learn to love myself all over again while losing people even. And that, I think that's the worst part too. It's like when you lose people you care about, but it's just like, I don't know. I've had to get so good at like letting go, and it's unfortunate, but it has to happen.
I know that very well. I lost one of my, well, she's still alive, but she like,
yeah.
Because she has like this perfect picture like of me, and I'm not. And she was like one of my best friends. She was a Pisces as well, but she just like, Amber knows, like it's just like you're grieving someone that's still alive, and it sucks. And when people like stop talking to you, cut you out, it's just like it's awful. And
even too, it's like I can see like the trajectory that they're gonna go in once I'm gone, and I'm just like, oh, I don't want this for you. You know what I mean? But it's like sometimes they're hell bent on it, or it's just like you understand. You're like, the only reason that you were special was because I made you special. Like, because you're a reflection of me, or you know what I mean? And it's like, and if I've gotten good with loving myself, well, I'm gonna love the person that's also in front of me appropriately. Yeah.
And I understand with like the whole body image thing, like Amber and I know that very well, because my father lost his hand. So people would stare at him in public all the time. And he was a witch on top of it. So it was just like everybody knew. We lived in a really tiny town in Iowa at the time. So I
live in a town of like, I think like 6,000 people, and like it's where I grew up too. So it's like when I came back with like some of the changes, I was not welcomed. Like I don't know, I had seen like my eyes like black in like pictures and stuff like that like a lot, and I'd even gotten like an automatic writing about it where it was like, you know, tattoo your eyes so you can see through their lies. And it's like, I most definitely can. Like a lot of times people's faces like tell me more than they do, you know, like just walking down the sidewalk, like people don't realize the faces that they make. And when I came back, like I was told like, you know, what you did was over the top, or you're selfish, or it's like, we don't even know you, but it's like, you didn't even know me back then either. So it's like, how could you even fathom getting to know me now through all these changes? You know, my dad's side of the family, they don't talk to me anymore. Like they tried to keep my daughter from me when I got my eyes tattooed. And it's also because of like, you know, the pursuit in which that I take. So it's been interesting, but like I've always tried to hold true to, you know, the path as best as I could, because it's like, that was again, the only thing that could like truly fulfill me. And like I've gotten kicked out of, go ahead.
That's the only thing you can truly do is be who you are. And if people don't like it, I usually just tell them to fuck off. So
yeah. It's sometimes it's hard to like do that, but then like other times like I'll be like in a manic place and like I just don't even give a shit, and I'm just like, hey, guess what you just said put a dick in it. I don't give a shit. I didn't even fucking ask. Have a nice day. Like,
Amber's a water sign as well, so I'm the fire sign right behind her going, you can just fuck off.
Nice.
And Amber's like, Amy, okay, calm down.
Yeah, Amy's very good at I'm a lot more of like a peacekeeper in certain ways, and but I haven't, I mean, I will be honest, even though I have traveled this path my entire life, I have very rarely had anyone come at me in a hostile or aggressive way. And I mean, I project a very wholesome type thing, and it's not even necessarily intentional. And I guess I look out in certain ways with that.
So I always say about
I don't like express myself, like I guess the stuff that matters to me in my path and my views on the world, because I just get looked over very often.
I always introduce Amber as my Mormon sister, because the way she just like presents herself at times, and I like pat her head and everything, it's just like, no.
Yeah, no, and I don't know, it's weird too, because like I've even had people like, there's like, you shouldn't be friends with that guy. He's plotting and he's scheming and blah blah blah. And I'm like, dude, I wake up and I don't even know what day of the week it is. Okay, I know the day of the week, but I don't know like the date, you know. And it's like, I don't know what the weather's gonna be like. I just step outside and I just like, I'm winging shit like on the daily. Like, if you think I'm like that crazy dude with like Venn diagrams and I'm like pulling this string to that person because they're associated with this and blah blah blah, like some fucking psycho, like you got me completely wrong. Like, I don't give a shit. The other thing too, it's like, I just know that when I step into like those lower energies and lower dimensions, a lot of people just can't handle it. Like, everyone can, you know, be a certain way, give me a certain tone, talk hella shit, but it's always like either behind my back or behind the screen. Like, nobody can ever like do it directly like to my face. And I don't expect people to be perfect, but it's like, I do not condone like petty, and like because I don't want to do that. And it's like super low energy to be in. The other thing too, it's just like, if I step to that level of petty, I'm the type of person that like, I'll put the whole building on fire and I'll stay in there with you just to make sure you don't get out.
I don't know, like, because my parents are more like love and light, and my sister is in a way too, but I'm not like that. I'm more like, I will do whatever the fuck I need to protect myself and my family.
Oh yeah.
I'm more into like the baneful magic, like my cousin. He was supposed to be on, but he's busy. He's been having like a lot of medical issues. He's almost died, like, not even joking, probably like 12 times last week.
Damn, I died 13 times last year.
Well, then, you know, it's been a lot.
Yeah, it was all in like one sitting. It's just like, died, came back, died, came back, died, came back.
Yeah, that's exactly how he's been. So we're just like, focus on yourself. So you're into baneful magic too as well, right? Do you?
Yeah.
I think I've heard during your live that you mentioned that before.
Yeah, so I mean, I do a number of things. I mean, I've done like protection magic as well, but I like to make like malevolent protection, actually, where, you know, it's like I walk in peace until like you try to come at me in some kind of a way, and then it's almost like a Yu-Gi-Oh trap card, like, oh, you know, like, back up. You know, and like, because again, it's like, you know, I'm not trying to like, you know, ruin somebody else's day, but at the same time too, it's like, I am gonna like stand up for myself and the things that like I care about. For a long time, it was actually kind of a pain in the ass to even do anything painful or malevolent, because I was like, well, if I do this, like, I'm a bad person, or I am no better than these people, or it's just like, well, if I do it, like, I don't want to like get in trouble or whatever else. But then it's like, it was weird because I kept getting like put up against the wall, and it's just like, just do the thing. And I'm like, okay, fine. Like, you know, I'll just do the thing. And even like more recently, I would say like, I've just kind of been like open to it, and I just don't care. And like Spirit is even teaching me like how to do like different like spells and stuff like that. Like, I'll just be out and about and like somebody will say something slick, and at first like it won't click, and then there'll be just like a slight moment of like dissociation, and then I'll be like, wait a second, and then I really pay attention. Yeah, I don't know, it's definitely been interesting. But yeah, I would say like I try to walk more the middle path than anything. I like to be balanced, and I feel like with my practice. What's that?
A gray witch, when you're like light and dark.
Yeah, because I mean, for me, it's balance. I would say I walked in the light for like a long time, but then when I started doing like practice and I looked into like deity work and stuff like that, a lot of infernal agents showed up in very quick succession, and I got taught things like a lot, like really quick. Like I haven't had like a ton of like physical teachers, and I also haven't like divulged like a whole bunch of like books and stuff. Like I have a small occult library, but I have like way too much like ADHD, so it's like I can't sit down to focus and do anything.
Yeah,
Um,
that's me.
but yeah, and it's weird because it's like I take like all these different systems, and it's like I use like a little piece of like every single one of them, and then I just kind of like make my own like smorgasbord of shit, but it works. And then I also do like divination a lot. Not as active. I'm working like a 12-hour muggle shift, and it makes me hate my life. But I mean, I've been doing divination for probably like I think like 3 years now, and I've only been getting like
Yeah, you're really good at tarot cards because you did a reading for me once.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you were pretty dead on with everything that was going on in my life at that time. So
mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're talking about like you do like dream work and stuff, and I think after you were like, oh, do you want to be on the podcast? I think I had a dream like several nights ago, and I'm not sure who was in it, but like there was like some kind of a scene with like a wedding. I don't think it was for me. I don't know who it was for, but everyone there was like wearing like white basically, and it was like really happy. And it's like, you know, I was dressed how I'm dressed, look how I look, and then there was somebody else there who they didn't really have white either. They had black, and then they were like it looked like they were setting up like an altar cloth. I just remember it being black with like pentagrams on it. And then like, you know, the next scene was like I was like talking to them, like I think there was like some dancing, and then I was like, hey, like, whoa, I gotta talk to you about something. And after that it's like I like woke up and I was like, whoa, oh, okay, that was interesting. And the other thing too, like the other weird thing that I've been having too is like a lot of dream of like federal agents or like SWAT teams like showing up. Like it's never for me, but like I'm just always around, and I'm like, why is this happening?
Yeah, I always like keep like a dream journal because sometimes it's spirits coming to me, sometimes it's for someone else, you know, that's alive. So, and then if someone talks to me and it like for me like makes a connection to them, I'm like, okay, this is what I dreamed and it might be for you. So take it if you want it. You don't have to take it, you know, it's kind of like when you're doing a tarot card reading, you're like, take what resonates with you or not. So, well, it depends.
No, dream work is really interesting. I would say I show up in more people's dreams.
I feel like for dream work for me, it's like I have the most off the wall dreams when I do dream that I'm just, I don't know. I want to pursue it more. It's just something that I feel like I still need to develop a little bit better.
Yeah, I think for me, I think the most difficult thing is like, I think I'm like at that precipice where it's just like, I am on the edge of learning some very like important things. And in order to do that, it's like, you know, I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily like sacrificing like a piece of the self. I mean, I do think it's embodying, but it's like, I have to step into like that whole other like dimension, like fully, not, you know what I mean? But it's like, I can't do that because I have, you know, all these like 3D physical like things I need to like constantly take care of. But it's just like, man, because like I want to like fully step into it because I know that there's some big things that I'm supposed to be like doing, discovering, learning, and then like also like teaching. And it's unfortunate that you know, this is the way that it is. Because I even remember once upon a time, I spoke to somebody who like they kind of saw me like starting to come into power, and like one day I was just like chilling there, sitting like kind of cross-legged. It was after work, and I was like smoking, and I like looked at them, and I was like, you know, I'm like, this path used to have a lot more honor attached to it. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, all right, that's over the top. All right.
Right. It's, I think just the way that a lot of people perceive witches is it's hard to connect because like even me, you know, I've literally like ran like a pagan pride event. I've been out there in the public joining hand in hands in like my state's capital area, and I still have that moment where, you know, like all of a sudden like the person I'm with tells like their aunt or something that I like what my podcast is about, and it's that moment where you pause for like half a second, you're like, and how do they perceive it? because it you never know how all of a sudden, like, you know, which way it's gonna go, and yeah, it's interesting. Do you find that people like with, is it more of your appearance, or is it more of how, I guess, how open are you?
Oh man, I try to be like
How
really
are you,
open.
how often do
I
you
would
find that
think,
you're judged as being a witch, I guess?
how often do I feel judged?
Mm.
I would say like pretty often. I mean, like even before I had like the changes like of like facial features, like I was pretty open about it. Like my construction workers even used to call me like Kundandero, which is like the witch doctor, because like I would be like, oh man, I did this ritual last night, like some crazy shit happened. Or I'm just kind of like, hey, like, you know, when our boss was being a piece of shit, like I decided to do, you know, magic against somebody for like the first time, and I got him fired for like racketeering. And I told everybody he was a piece of shit from the beginning, but nobody believed me until like he was like gone. But no, I would say I've always been like pretty open about it. I would say like in certain ways I've gotten more like quiet about it, because I'm like, I've tried to teach people and say too much for too long, and it's like, unless you can like open that door to me yourself, it's probably just
Mhm.
gonna stay that way. Like I'm gonna meet you where you're at. You know what I mean? Because like
Yeah.
I can't spend all that time and effort on it. But I would say like now, like it's like first it's, I'm sure part of it's like with the energy that I carry, but again, it's kind of like they look at me like I'm not human per se. And then also like I'll even joke with people. I'll just be like, oh yeah, like I'll tell a story about how like I almost turned a dude into a doll because he was like being mean to me on the job site. He like took my tools and shit, and I was like, bro. And he actually like cut himself on something that day, and like some blood had like dropped onto like a piece of metal, and I was like, be the bigger person, be the bigger person. And then I like took it anyways. And the next day he came, he apologized to me, and I let him know. I was like, bro, I was this fucking close to turning you into a goddamn doll. I'm not even kidding. Like the minute I bring up like, you know, give me some of your blood, give me your hair, give me your birthday, like whatever else, like the conversation, like it shifts really quick. Um, yeah, I don't know. It is really interesting because like I can see both like the facial and the body language, but I can also feel like the energy like change where I realize I'm like, okay, I have said too much, or it's like clearly I have freaked this person the fuck out. Yeah.
I've had like people like try to challenge me, but like, do you guys have a Bible? I'm like, actually, there is a witch's Bible. And just been like, I feel like Amber and I have just been judged like our whole life for being a witch.
I mean, I just throw it back at them, and I'm like, hey man, like I was in the church for 20 years. I know enough about the occult. Like, did you know that your pastor or your priest is essentially like, yeah, like a high priest in some kind of a way? Like they have an altar, they have a candle, they use like certain colors for certain seasons, wear certain robes for certain seasons and certain reasons. I mean, like the act of communion
them, like,
of itself is a ritual.
Do you celebrate your birthday? And I'm like, do you make a wish? Do you blow that candle out? Do you make that wish before? I'm like, that's magic. That's spell work.
Do you put a Christmas tree in your house? Like,
yes.
You know what I mean?
I'm like
But I pointed at people too, and I'm like, hey, like I'm not trying to rip on like all of your shit. I just think that like you're not as informed as you could be. You know, like a lot of times, like a lot of religions and cults, they're either built off of worship of the sun, the moon, or sex cults. That's usually where the three come from. And like Christianity came from like Emperor Constantine, and he was a devout father of Mithra. And then it's just like a conglomerate of like all this shit. Like I'm not saying it's wrong or it can't be used as a tool, because it definitely can be. It's definitely like, you know, coded messaging. And like for instance, I'll tell people, I'm like, well, you know, like it's considered like a holy book or whatever. And I'm like, when you open up to the Psalms, like those are holy incantations.
Yeah,
they talk about like
spell work with those.
Yeah, and it's like the other thing too, it's like, you know, they talk about like, oh, the seven seals, like the seven trumpets in heaven, or like whatever. And it's just like, well, back then we could only see 7 planets. You have 7 planets, 7 chakras, 7 days of the week, like whatever. So it's just like, and when they say the seal specifically, they're referring to like the chakras themselves. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of people fail at the idea of like meditation and going into that quiet room and like really observing like the self. I mean, for me, my practice, I feel, has been a mix of like searching for the truth, studying the occult, but also like the individuation process with like Carl Jung, like on a psychological perspective. I feel like it's just been like a trinity of those things for the longest time. And I don't know, and I like, it's interesting too, because like I'll see people and I'm like, I can see that a part of you wants to get out of whatever mode of being that you're in, because you know that there's more, but you refuse to leave. And it's just like, I know you're in there, like come out. It's okay. You know?
Yeah. I feel like one of my personal favorites is like when they send me things that they think I'll be interested because they like it talks a little bit about spiritual, or it talks a little bit about, I don't know, like ancient Egypt, even just things that they think that I'll find interesting because I'm a witch or I'm
Mm.
pegging in their eyes, and they're just like,
Mm.
but then you're just like, but you recognized all those aspects in there. Like you
Mm.
started connecting it and started weaving it. And you're like,
Mm.
is there something in you that's interested? But then you're just like, I'll accept it as what it is. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll check it
Mm.
out. But then you just start like, what did you hear? What drew you in and thought like, oh, this is her cup of tea all of a sudden. Like it makes you
Mm.
wonder, I guess.
Yeah, I'm like, don't be me. You know what I mean? Like, I understand
Mhm.
like this might be cool, this might be fun, or it's just like, oh man,
Mhm.
like this dude, he's like tapped into something else. I mean, which I am. But again, it's
Mhm.
just like I want you to discover you. Don't
Mhm.
don't discover me. Like that's my job. You know what I mean? Like meet me where I'm
Yeah.
at, sure. But like discover yourself. Like heal yourself so you're not like operating in the same like trauma loop or cycle. Like stop like I mean
Mhm.
it's not hard to be aware of the cyclical patterns that you're in. And like, yeah, it takes making a different choice. A lot of times that choice is like hard or more difficult, but it's like you can stay where you want. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I feel like, sometimes like, the creator, the Lord, the Lady, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
it loves you so much where it's just like I'll let you go down that road just because you want to, even though I know what's
Mhm.
waiting like for you. Like you've got that free will, but it's also like a parent where it's just like, hey,
Mhm.
I wouldn't go that way because I know X, Y, and Z is going to happen. But this is what I have for you over here. If you want to come this way, and then
Mhm.
they're like, no. And some people they gotta like they gotta go down their own road for a while. And again, it's because they haven't healed their trauma stuff and like still being in like a victim mentality. Because it's like whatever you ask for, it will be given. Like everything is
Yeah.
projected out of you. Like ye are gods. Like if you are created in like the image of your maker, so to speak, it's like if a dog has puppies, they're dogs, right? If a cat has kittens, they're still cats. If a cow has a calf, it's still a cow, right? If you were created from something higher, would you not also be that?
Yeah.
And I feel like
Well,
that takes a different level of responsibility in like overstanding and being like, okay, shit, like this is actually all up to me.
right. It's I'm trying to think of the words, I guess, for it,
Hmm.
but it's kind of like, like we all have a little bit of divine in us, but it's
Hmm.
you're still connected. You still have that thread that brought you down from them. And
Hmm.
it's interesting, like when people like they start discovering different things, and then you're like, remember, I might be a catalyst, but your goal is not to
Hmm.
become me. Your goal is to become
Yes.
you. And
Yes.
it's kind of like I can only help you discover you, but it's still your journey. You have to do it. I can't do the work for you.
I agree. I
Yeah.
even tell people to like, because a lot of people just like live in their trauma and stuff. And I'm like, you need to do, there's so many different types of healing and shadow work. And
Hmm.
I can only do so much for you. I don't have like this magic ability to be like, everything's okay.
Hmm.
Mhm.
You have to find
Yeah,
your
and
own
like then people
journey.
just like they like love being around you. You know what I mean? Because it's like, oh, like they did the work, like they have good energy. Like I can tell
Mhm.
that they're a blessing. I can tell like all these other things, and then
Mhm.
it's unfortunate too because it's like again, it's like I can see what's gonna happen when I'm not around. It's like as soon as I leave, it's like the floodgates of whatever
Mhm.
lessons or karma that I've been waiting. They like show up. Shortly after that. Um, but again, it's like that's a choice, and some people just need to go through a little bit more character development. Like people ask me, they're like, well, what do the tattoos mean? And I'm like, well, depending upon what level of conversation I can have with you, I can either be like, well, I needed to appease the trauma gods, like more tattoos, let's go, right? Other people, I'm like, nope, like I was onto some stuff. Like, okay, so when I got my ice tattooed, I had to travel for this. I had to go down to Texas, and I went down there to visit the graves of the great grandparents I never got to meet, and ask some questions about that side of the family. And even driving to one of the graves, I'm listening to a song, and I've heard it 1,000 times, and it's just like something about like, oh, like you're chosen, and for some reason, like I like broke down into tears on the way there, and I was like, oh my god, like oh, like you want to pick me, like okay. And then I went to a different area in Texas, and I told the guy, I was like, hey, like I do witchcraft and shit. I've seen stuff. I've whatever. I want to get my eyes tattooed. And he's like, okay, so you want to get your demon eye, huh? And I was like, why would you say it like that? You know? And then the other thing was that when I went to get my eye tattooed, I wanted to have the makeup of the Eye of Ra, but without the little swirl. And I got both eyes tattooed and 11 piercings in the period of about 24 hours. No numbing cream, no nothing before or after. And long story short, I had to get my room for another night, and I did. And when I checked out, the lady was like, okay, you can pay for the room now. It was $66.60. And then on the last day, this guy, he's walking into the shop, and he has a white shirt on, and the only thing that's on that shirt is the Eye of Ra, as I'm getting like the last injections in my eye. And I'm like, okay, I see you're reflecting to me, you know what I mean? Like my decisions, my choices, you know what I mean? And so, oh man, sometimes it can get like really like wacky and wonky, because it's just like, again, you start to see like how malleable reality can be, or like you are actually like tapped into something that is higher than you know what I mean? And not everyone can understand that. So I've even told people, I'm like, hey, like if I operate weird, or if I make weird decisions and like whatever else, and you're kind of like, you don't get it, like you have to understand it's in tandem with this thing.
Interesting. Oh gosh, now I think I'm just thinking of the tattoo process in the eyes right now.
Yeah, so each eye got, yeah, it really hurt. Yeah. Each eye got 3 injections, and then with the actual like tattoo gun, I got the liner like put on and everything. I had the symbol of Neptune on my cheek beforehand, and I also have like webs in my ears and everything. So like all these things, they kind of like correlate to something, because like Neptune rules are a Pisces. It's also like the symbol of illusionment and delusionment. So it's like some people, they think I'm enlightened as fuck, and other people are like, yeah, this dude's fucking delusional. Like I don't know what he's in Delulu world, you know, right? And then the webs, it's like, you know, spidey senses, so to say. And then like the eyes, like one, like now when I look into a mirror, like it's almost like instant scrying, you know. I think the other thing too, like it's helped my energy have more of like a piercing energy to them. Like I noticed that it's easier for me to like look into someone's eyes and like actually like speak to like their soul or like their subconscious, versus like just this surface thing.
Interesting.
I think it's really interesting. My dad, random fact, my dad was a tattoo artist when I was younger, so I used to like pass out to like the sound of the tattoo gun. It was like my white noise. I was a strange child, okay?
Yeah, no, it's okay. I have a tattoo gun, but like I don't know how to tattoo. Like I tried it once and I was like, oh fuck, this is way harder than I thought.
I think everyone in my family has some type of ability with art, so.
Nice. I think for me, I would say it's mainly with music and sigils.
It's cool. I use sigils a lot. I paint them in my house, so I have them like everywhere. Amber was like,
I have a few tattooed on me.
What's this one for? I'm like, I'm a witch. I have them everywhere.
I love to walk down your house, Amy, and then like come to the end of the stairway, and then you just have that moment you just happen to look over, and you're like, "Yep, a witch lives here."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about, I guess, like how being a witch affects relationships, and then you mentioned a little bit of deity work, and you said it's been a while. Do you have any deities that you're, I guess, particularly like drawn to? Or that you're
absolutely.
in and out of your practice, or you just interact with, I guess?
So in the now, I'm not like super currently active with like anything in particular. I think if I was going to tap into something, I think it would actually be infernals and angels at the same time. I've noticed that I have very big sway with both realms. But I was like playing with my Ouija board one day, and I was like, is somebody here? And it's just like, yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. Tell me your name. And it spelled out caustic, like the word cost, and then like UC. And I'm like, that's not an entity that I am aware of. And I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, no, that said cost you, but there's no to, but to see essentially. And I was like, okay. And I was like, what is it going to cost me? And it said blood. And I was like, all right, you want to fuck around? That's fine. So I put a little blood on the board. I put a little blood on the planchette. And like anybody else I tell this to, like, oh my God, I could never. And I'm like, bro, I've been possessed like 3 or 4 different times by like an entity, like to do like scrying and everything else. So it's just like, I don't care. Like, I don't. But what happened was, like, after I did that, it actually spelled out its name, and it said Visago, which is like one of the Goetia demons, and he's considered to be like a prophetic seer, and he has 3 black eyes, and the forehead tattoo I'm gonna get has like a bind rune with a third eye like in the center, and I'm like seeing the picture of this, like of the depiction of Visago, and I'm like, there's no fucking way, like there's no way, right? But obviously, it's like, everything is connected.
Yeah, and
But
with you doing the blood, that means you connect it too, because it creates a tie there. So I think that's what you had planned for your tattoos, and then what he looks like. I think that's kind of
yeah, I think it just like affirmed to me that it's just like,
Mhm.
yes, this is the thing.
Yeah, because Amber and I know people who work with demons and stuff too. So
Yeah, no, me and the boys were pretty tight. What's the word? So yeah, when I first started doing deity work, like I was dating somebody at the time. They were definitely involved with like the craft. They were a lot more quiet about it though. Very like covert, kind of narcissistic type, and I didn't really realize that until the end of the relationship, and I was like, fuck. But no, it was interesting because like Hecate started showing up very strongly. She was the first deity that I ever like tapped into or ever worked with. And at first I was like, well, I don't know, like I need some signier signs. Could you give me like the pie in my face kind of sign? Like then,
Yeah.
and like I was on the job site, I was catching bats. I gotta clean my earbud, hang on. I was running a job site up north in La Crosse, and I would catch bats on the job site. I caught a kestrel, pigeons, like you name it. And everyone's like, what the fuck is this kid on? And I'm like, I am the shaman. And then I'd like run away, But then I caught like this Pandora sphinx moth, and it was so beautiful. Like it was in a puddle, and I like picked it up, and it stayed on my hand, and then it just like vibrated its wings at me. And I was like, whoa, what is this? And it didn't fly away. And then I like went to go and like put it down so I could go back to work, and then it like flared its wings up at me in like protest, and I was like, okay. I like messaged a friend. I was like, hey, can I get a reading real quick? I want to see if like, the lady wants to like work with me or whatever else. And they're like, oh, for sure, absolutely. But I'm like, again, sign your sign, huh? And I was at a bar with somebody, and we like went to walk out, and these 2 people are having a conversation that wasn't even related to me or the person I was with. We step out, and then this lady's like, oh yeah, so that's why I named my cat Hecate, after the goddess of witchcraft and magic. And I was like, okay, fuck, I get it. Like, like I got the sign of your sign. So yeah, I tapped into her, and then it was Beelzebub, and he actually initiated me. So this was like one of those, ooh, yeah, I got chills again. This was one of those like very visceral experiences for me. I had done scrying, and what was it? I used to be somebody else once upon a time. I was moving some things, and I tried some psilocybin on the way home. Was not probably the best idea. But I caught my eye in the rearview mirror, and something kind of started like taking over. I started having like more animalistic type of like behaviors, and then somewhere along the lines, like there was this blinding light that was in front of me, and it was an angel, but it wasn't like your white Anglo-Saxon guy with like the robes, the toga, and the wings and stuff. Like it was like the rings, it was the eyes, it was a lot of stuff, and I was like, whoa. I don't even remember how I got home, but somehow I did, and I like got out of the car, and I live in a motorhome, so it's like I was at the campground when there really wasn't anybody there anymore. And I get out of the car, and I'm like, what is going on? And this thing is like, it's like still like I can feel its energy, and it's like it's a part of me at this point. I'm like, what is going on? And it was like, the 7 seals have been broken, like blah blah blah, this, that, and whatever else. And I was like, whoa, what is happening? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, I saw an angel. What angel was that? Because I'm like, that wasn't Hecate. I don't think that could be Beelzebub. And then like he spoke through me to the mirror, and he said Lord Lucifer was a saint. Like he was very like angry and adamant about it, but then he paused, he slowed himself down, and then he's like, Lord Lucifer is a saint. And I'm like, oh shit. And like I remember like when I first started looking into like Lucifer, I had gotten like a god coin that's got like Baphomet on it with the inverted star, and it's like, Satan, the serpent, Beelzebub, and like what, like Lucifer or something. And as I'm driving, I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, there's no way Lucifer wants to work with me. Like I just started doing this shit. Like he's a big deal, or at least from what I've heard. and the song came on, and like the first line, it put chills through me. And I had heard the song like 1,000 times, but then like the first line was, "I've looked a long time to find you," and I'm like, whoa. And I had channeled Beelzebub a different time, and I had a witness both times that I had channeled him. But the second time I was in the car and I could feel it starting to kind of come on, and I was like, hey, I can't do this in here. Like, people are gonna come up and check on me. So he's like, okay, cool. And he like, yeah, I took my hand and I just said recede, and I was like, whoa. Went back inside, and then when I was inside, I told the person there, and I was like, hey, like he's here. And they're like, now? I'm like, yeah, like I want to see what this is about. And like I said, they practiced and they had seen me do it the first time. So I'm like, turn off the lights. I turned on a couple candles, and I'm kind of got anxiety. I'm like, oh shit, oh fuck, because I can tell it's gonna be a big deal, whatever the fuck he's got to say. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I look at my phone. It's like 1:11 a.m. and I'm like, oh shit. Go to the mirror, and I like start doing scrying, and I lock into my own eyes. And then he says, like, this, in my opinion, this is how he initiated me, and this is how I became more aware of like myself. So he says, to question the self is to be God. You are of the self is you. You are of the self is you. You are of the self is you. Speak to Azazel. Welcome to Godhood. And then I like kind of stepped away from the mirror, and then the other person, they looked at me like, what did he just say to you? And I was like, you heard it. Like, you were right there. And I had never known like who Azazel was up until that point. Like, that was the first time I'd ever heard the name. And then the name came through, and I started doing work with Azazel. And that got very intense. I got a lot of knowledge from Azazel. I have his sigil tattooed on my body. So I would say for me, it was that main group. I mean, I work with Marbus. I've looked into Metatron. I looked into Michael. I haven't looked into Gabriel, Raphael, or Uriel yet. Azrael, he came to me. That was very interesting. I would say I was initiated through Santa Muerte in a non-traditional way. She had a devotee who went through some stuff. I had an abusive ex. I showed up. I turned their ex into an onion, and I put a knife through it. I threw it in the river like 3 days later, and then he ended up in jail. We went to his sacred site out in the woods. We burned absolutely everything. And then when we left, an owl showed up. And, I was looking into like Lechuza at the time, and Lechuza is like a Hispanic spirit, which is a witch that can transform into an owl. And if it screeches at you, that is an extremely bad omen. But an owl showed up, and it's like almost anytime I do anything like Santa Muerte related, it doesn't fail. There's like an owl that shows up somewhere, but instead of it screeching, it always whoos. I
had an owl land in front of me, like not even a foot from me, and just stared at me and flew away.
Damn, I would love to have like a pet owl or a hawk, just anything, like a crow, a raven. I want it.
This last week, I had an eagle right in front of me, fly right in front of me. So I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Birds love me.
I see hawks on the regular. Like today, I was like driving. I was like, I'm gonna go to the post office and get some mail, and I'm like on the road, and then this one like swoops down in front of the car, and then like flies alongside the car for like a good while, and I could tell it was like a red-tailed hawk because like it flashed like its tail at me, and I was like, oh, you're so majestic. I want you. Like, I just want to pet you and love you, and like just like you're gonna really help me embody the shamanic vibes I got going on. I mean, it'd be cool to have like a murder of crows,
Yeah, I've always been like very connected to Amber's. Amber calls it the Snow White effect.
I call it the Disney princess effect.
Yeah.
Where I don't know why, but animals love me. They follow me around, and I'm just like, I don't know what's happening.
No, it's like that, honestly. Like, I just tell people, I'm like, yeah, I'm just a Disney princess. Like, cool shit happens all the time, and I'm just kind of like winging it, Like, it even says it on my business website, and I was just like, yeah, like, so these are like either items that I've gathered while I'm out being a Disney princess and like satisfying my Loot Goblin tendencies. Like, don't mind me. Yeah.
I even had like a seagull go right in front of me in like Boston, and I'm just like, please don't, because you know what they're good at.
See, my issue too is like, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna catch this little guy, and he's gonna be my best friend. He's gonna be my pet. He's gonna live with me forever. It's like, that's illegal. It's like, fuck.
Yeah. I I live in a very rural area, on a cattle farm, so I see like any like birds, like predator birds all the time. But like lately I've just been seeing so many foxes. Like it's just like left and right. Probably like twice a week it seems like they cross my path. So I feel like there's a message in there that's coming.
I mean, foxes are like very intelligent. They're very cunning. They're like very, very sneaky. I have a friend. Their nickname is like the little fox, and they do like everything fox related. Like I gave them like a foxtail that like I found years ago. I was like getting feathers from like a vulture or something on like the side of a highway, and then I looked to my right, and then there was a foxtail, literally just a foxtail. Like it looked like something ripped it right out of its ass. And I was just like, okay, you're coming with me. I don't know why, but you're coming with me.
I love the witchy tendencies where you're constantly it's like you're in constant like supply mode where you're just like, yes, I'm taking you. I need like, you just find something on the ground or you look over and you're like, this is a gift and I need to take it. This is
because you never know what you need it for. So
yeah, for me it's like I build my practice off of like thrifting. Like I'm not even kidding. Like I got like I would say probably like 90% of my fucking life is like all secondhand. Like it's antique shops or it's Goodwill or it's like a thrifting place or whatever. Like sure I'll get a few items like brand new, like maybe it'll be like what is it? Like altar cloths or something like that, or it's like I gotta go to the store to get like incense or like some certain ingredients and stuff, but it's just like my bowls, like mortar and pestles, candle holders, like different like altar like centerpieces and stuff for workings, like all that stuff I've gotten at like Goodwill. And it's like I even tell people on my channel, I'm like, you don't need fancy new brand new shit. You don't need to have like
Amber and I did a whole discussion on being a witch on a budget, because a lot of people think they need like the best, like most fanciest, expensive thing out there. I'm like, you really don't.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people they like make it like way more complicated than it needs to be. I mean, like I'm even guilty of this too, because that's just like I'm like, oh shit, like how am I gonna do this thing? And it's like I have literally stopped time and then summoned an Archon in the exact same moment, and it scared the absolute fucking shit out of me. So I'm just like, you have done bigger things than this. Like, why are you being a bitch? Like, just fucking do it. And if it doesn't work, okay, try it again. Maybe tweak that. I don't know. I just think a lot of people they really want us to stay in a state of guilt, shame, and trauma, because then it's like we're more malleable for them. We're more like easily like controlled, and people don't want you to like step into your power and stuff. And like I've gotten kicked out of groups because people were like, this dude has too much power. Like this is not okay. Like this is how should this be possible? Like the night that I summoned, I feel like it was an Archon, because I have felt a lot of different energies, but like nothing even to this day sticks out quite as much as that. I did a ritual with some friends, and it felt like during that time was suspended. I was the only person on a substance, and I had telepathy with my friend. I felt that there was like this council that had appeared, and they were watching me. And I looked at him, and I was like, well, wait a second. If I am this thing that I know that I am, what could be above that? And then I saw them, and I'm like, they're watching me. And I was like, why are they watching me? And I realized, I was like, wait, they don't want me to know. And I was like, why don't they want me to know? And I'm like, oh, they don't want me to be up there with them. And I'm looking at him, and I'm asking these questions out loud, and I'm hearing his answer in my head, and I say his answer out loud, and he just looks at me and shakes his head. And I'm like, there's no fucking way. And then after I realized that, like this thing showed up, and it was definitely malevolent. It definitely wanted like human life as like a consequence, and it would only move in the shadows. Like you could actually hear it moving, and you could feel it, you could sense it, like almost as if it was about ready to like physically manifest in like the next doorway. But beforehand, like I had done a ritual. We took a altar cloth pentagram, we pointed it to the north, we put a crystal in association with like every element in its place, and I tried to summon two entities. and the people that we had invited to the ritual, they had gotten like very disrespectful in the place that wasn't even my home, but it's like I was the practitioner that like orchestrated all this. And so I was like, you just need to leave. And then they left. And I had been joking, holding my grimoire that I was writing at the time, and I was joking with my friend. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, this is gonna be like the Bible when I'm done with it. And he's like, ha ha ha. And then like right before that Archon showed up, I was joking. No, I wasn't. I think something clicked in my head, and I still don't fully understand what it was, but I was just like, bro, I'm like, I'm fucking Yahweh. And then like something showed up, and I was like, oh, what is that? And then once we got it to like dispel, because at first I wasn't sure what to do, and I was like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, like we are going to be fucked until the sun comes up, essentially. Um, but essentially, I went in there and I told it to like, just eat somebody's ass from the back, like don't come here again, like whatever. But then the next day, even more weird stuff happened. I went to my father's farm, and somebody was dropping off a very important animal. And the weird thing was as well was this was somebody that I would buy stuff from, not directly, but he was always like, I always had a middleman, but I had seen his face. He showed up at my dad's farm, giving him one singular male lamb because he lived in the city and he couldn't keep it with him anymore. So I'm like freaking out because like this crazy shit happened the night before. I'm like, this thing's gonna be the Bible. I'm Yahweh, and then all of a sudden now someone's dropping off a male lamb at my dad's farm, and I'm like, there is no fucking way. And then later that week, I'm at work, and somebody's like, "Can you help me lift this piece of duck that's in the air?" And it had like cup pins on it, and I like lift it from the pins for some fucking reason, and the caps on the pins slid down, and the nails like went into both my hands. And I like brought my hands down, and I looked at both of them, and I'm like, "What is happening? Like, what? Why am I having like actual like 3D visceral like responses to these things?" So yeah, I don't know. Like a lot of people, they're like, "Oh, like tell me about yourself," and I'm just like, "I am that I am." Like I don't know. Like I'm not to be understood. I am to be witnessed. Like that's all you got to know.
I think Amber and I feel the same way because it's like a long-winded answer. We're like, you want the short version or the long version?
Yeah, but, honestly, yeah.
So how long have you been doing tarot cards? Because I know you do them because I've seen your lives. And what
draw
to them?
No, thank you. Yeah. I've been doing tarot for I would say about 3 years, but I really didn't put myself out there until like the last like year and a half or so. At first it was just kind of like oracle cards, and then I noticed that like for some reason a lot of like male readers, if they use oracle cards, they don't get as much traction or attention for I don't know why. But like I started out with that. Like once upon a time I was doing tarot, I was using like the Dreams of Gaia deck, but for some reason like I just didn't click with it or connect with it fully at the time. I want to get it again now because I'm like, okay, now that I'm more experienced as a reader, I feel like this would be good for me. I trained myself through the Rider-Waite tarot deck. So I know a lot of the like traditional meanings, but I also like look at them very like intuitively, like using like cartomancy, where it's like, okay, where is this character looking? What's going on in the energy of this card? Does this energy carry into the next card? Like, are there repeating numbers in here? Okay, like I've got the element of air, so I know I'm talking about someone's thoughts or like a version of communication or something. Or it's like there's a lot of cups here, so we're definitely talking about like the emotional field. And I mean, like even the word arcana, like major and minor, like those are just secrets. So it's like we're figuring out the major secrets and we're figuring out the minor secrets. And I feel like my readings, again, it's like with my eyes, it's like I can pierce on a deeper level of that version of that person, like their self, whether it's like their soul or their subconscious. Like it to me, it feels like I'm isolating the experience where I'm just like, hey, I'm gonna talk directly to you because like you need this. And I don't try to sugarcoat anything as like a reader. I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, love and light, guys.
I remember during my reading, you're like, so I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. This is just how it's gonna be.
Yeah.
But
I used to be like super concerned.
I'd rather someone be honest with me than to like lie to me about it, you know? Be like, everything's gonna be okay, you know? So I get that. Is there any other type of divination you're into besides? I know you said Ouija board. Is there any other kind?
Yeah, so I use a pendulum. I also have a yes no coin. I haven't really been playing with that one a lot lately because it's just been giving me a lot of attitude. It's so upset at the fact that like I lost it for a little while, and Like the only answer it gives me is no, and I'm like, come on,
Yeah,
you've
you
given
get
me better answers than this before.
It was like pounding
I
down on you.
Yeah, I would say I've used like automatic writing or typing. That's definitely a big one. Let's see. I want to get into bone throwing. I have a lot of bones. I need to get like a few more little like charms and stuff, and then I'm just gonna kind of let myself like teach myself like I always have.
I wish
Um,
Nico was on here because he's into that. He's into a lot of folk magic.
yeah, and I'm
That's
teaching
my
myself
cousin.
like runes and everything too. Like
Mhm.
I want to be able to do like the big, well, maybe the biggest fucking spread for somebody in the future where it's just like, all right, cool. Like we're gonna pull in your astrology. I'm gonna like throw a couple of runes. I'm gonna cast some bones, and I'm also gonna have tarot here. Like I'm going to find out like literally all the dirt on everything that I can,
Yeah.
and because like I've even done it where it's like again I'm teaching myself how to do Norse runes, and it's like the runes even connected to the tarot cards, where it's just like the runes were like the precursor of like what this is gonna be about, and then it's like the tarot cards just fill in the details for me.
Mhm. I always get nervous when people do readings for me. I'm like, what are you gonna get? Because
What are you gonna get?
I try to. I'm not like I'm open. Like I've been brought up as a witch, but I'm also a very private person. You know. So I'm just like, let's see if they can get it correctly.
I feel
Yeah.
like I often get that reading where it's like it just tells you everything that you already like had in the back of your head and you were just like ignoring it and you're like, thanks for just
Yeah.
calling me out left and right.
I mean, I've
Yeah,
had
like
some
I'm gonna
people
go
even get
cry in the
upset with
corner right
me.
now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I've had people get upset with me, not because like I was accurate like in the moment. It was more like I'm like, hey, if you go down this road, this, that, and the third is gonna happen. They don't listen to me, and then it happens, and then there's like, you cursed me, blah. I was like, I didn't do a fucking thing. You said you wanted me to look, I looked. And sometimes, yes, there is consequences for looking too deep, where it's like, hey, I'm gonna let you in on the plan, but that means you gotta follow through on the plan.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
Um, and
100%.
yeah, it's interesting.
So it's coming to an end. So I want you to tell me about any projects you have in the future, near future, about your TikTok, anything social platform that you have that you want people to follow you on.
For sure. So let's see. I am on TikTok at Borderline Shaman. I started YouTube just because like the whole TikTok ban, but like it's still around. I want to use YouTube to do more like lengthy readings where it's like, okay, I can really get into this and I can have like the camera like facing the spread. Because when I do readings, I use different decks because I'm like, okay, like I use this one. Now I'm going to use this one, and we're going to see if the story still lines up, or it's like this is going to unlock like a different detail for me. So let's see, TikTok, YouTube. TikTok, I mainly use TikTok to do lives. Like I'll put out a short every now and again, but that's not like I guess where my main focus is at. YouTube for the longer readings, and then I have my business website that is on Square. So I think that is the Wandering Witch 888. Yeah, 3/8, and then I also have my business email as well. So the plan is I want to be able to live off my practice as best as I can. So I
think
I
that's
can
all
be
we're doing
free.
right now.
Yeah, like so I can be free to be myself, but also it's like it makes it easier for me to actually like do what my job is, to like be around like other people to gain information. I would really love to be able to go to all the different areas that like my ancestry comes from. So like I would love to go and visit like parts of Norway, the UK, Europe, Egypt, Mexico. Like I'm just kind of like all over the place, honestly. Currently trying to teach myself Hebrew as well, and that is proving to be a very big pain in the ass. And then always like kind of like collect my things for like my occult library, and then I'm also looking to do more collaborations with like other like-minded people because I've been flying solo for like a good little bit. But I've also noticed too, it's like sometimes like it'll be like, oh, like this person wants to collab with you, and it'll be okay, but then I notice it's like, can you make this item for me? And I'll be like in the process of it, and then it's just like something just does not want me to like make the thing. And this is like it's gonna be like a magical item. Like I know what properties are gonna be attached to it. Like I know I can be like this like arcane blacksmith, so to speak. But to me, it's like I think it's more like, hey, like yes, the person asked you to make this thing, but they're not gonna be responsible with it like you think that they're gonna be.
Yeah. I
And
know,
then it's
Amber and
like
I know how that is because we've had people use us because you know, my mother and father are, you know, high priestess and priest. So we have all these lessons, all this knowledge, really at the anytime, like, I don't have to, I can just go into my parents' room and be like, I want this book. Oh, I need this herb. You know, I'm very blessed in that way. You know, I have basically a witchy store right there. And people just use me for that. They're like, Amy, can I have this? Can I have that? Can you do this for me? Or even to my parents or my sister or any member of my family, can we have the spell? And so we completely understand.
Yeah. And it's like sometimes too, it's just like a lot of the work and the things I'm learning, it's like I gotta keep that close to the chest, you know? Like I've got one guy, he's kind of like my like apprentice, and like, you know, we're trying to teach him how to do a couple things, like get some knowledge, but also I'm trying to get him to like tap into like Hecate. I'm even telling him like this stuff isn't that hard. Like we think that it is, but it's not, you know? I'm like I send him a picture of like the first like little basic bitch altar that I made for her back when she first showed up, where I was like, dude, all I had was like literally like a statue of her. I made like a little thing of like pink Himalayan salt and roses. I made like a little half circle in front of her. I gave her 3 keys. I had seen like a cool fucking wand that while I was out and about had like moldavite, obsidian, like quartz and stuff on it. I put that like in her arms, and then I gave her like 3 little red candles, and then that was it. And it's like when I took a picture of the altar, the picture itself, it was like brighter, almost as if like somebody had put like a filter on it, even though I didn't change it. And then subsequently, like obviously more things started happening and whatnot. So I'm like, dude, you don't need a lot of stuff. It is about the intention. It's about your will. It's about your faith.
I believe that like whoever wants to work with you will find you. Like I've always been connected to Hecate. Like I was doing chants with her as like a child. I have also seen spirits, and we've also been really close to the dead. So I feel like each goddess or god or angel or whoever you want to work with will find you, and you will have a sign, and you'll be like, yes, this resonates with me. This is who I'm supposed to work with at this time. I feel like it changes over time too. Like I feel like some witches believe this is the goddess and goddess you're going to work with for the rest of your life, and that's just not going to be the story. It's not going to happen that way.
Oh yeah, well,
I mean, like some entities will stay around for a while, but I feel like there's only a few of them.
Yes.
I mean, I've even had experiences where like a goddess has been like, no,
yeah,
get out of here. Like, why are you barking at my tree? Just get lost.
I've had that with Venus, which I don't know why. Like back when I started looking into like deity work and I was like starting to do divination, I would use the pendulum, and I'd always ask, is Lady Venus present? Because that's my checking question, because it's always fucking no. So if I keep getting yeses like over and over again, I'm like, is Venus here? And then it's like, no. I'm like,
I've always had to be careful with pendulums, because as a child, I could control the answer, and my mom would get really angry at me. She's like, can you just go out of the room, Amy? I'm like, sorry.
Yeah.
I've even had it where it's like, oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, like for mine, I was rejected by ISIS, and I was like, okay, no, I get it. It's fine.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've tapped into her. I wanna look into like the Egyptian gods a little bit more. I want to even look into the Aztec gods, because Mediculi, he came to me one time and he's like the Aztec god of death, and I was just like you're old as shit. Like why are you popping up? You know, like there's not a lot of notes like on you. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's interesting. I don't think I've been like denied by any deity, but I definitely have ones that show up in force, like Santa Muerte. Like she just doesn't leave me alone, and like to be honest, she was the reason why I blew up on TikTok. So I had done like a reading. It was a short. I had like Suicide Boys playing in the background just because, like, you know, well, it's my thing, you know. And what happened was that it was like a 3-part video, and the first 2 parts blew the fuck up. Like, it had like 34,000 likes, all this stuff, like shares, comments, whatever. The second one was probably closer to like 10,000. And overnight, I went from having maybe like 500 followers to like 1,500, and I was able to go live. Like with my tattoos and stuff, even it's like there's been times where it's like I don't have a muggle job, and the only thing that kept me afloat was doing readings, was doing workings for people. You know, like people like, can you do this working for me? And I'm like, sure. And even if it sounds like it's something that I don't necessarily know like how to do, like I even get visions on how to do it. You know, like I'll get a vision on how to do this ritual because this thing happened or somebody asked for it, or it's like I'll get visions of tattoos like on my body before I physically get them. And then as I get them, that even subsequently like changes my energy. Yeah, it's just it's interesting. And again, I think in some ways it's like we're afraid to let go and really trust like ourselves to know what to do intuitively in every moment.
I feel like with my abilities, for example, it took me a very long time to let go and be like, just let my abilities take over. You know what I mean? Because you're
well, and I mentioned too, I'm like, I feel like I'm at that precipice where if I tap it any deeper, like I don't know. I'm not saying like spiritual psychosis type stuff, but it's definitely like I would definitely have to walk differently in the world space. And I'm curious how trying to integrate that would go, because I still know that the basic bitch 3D rules are still applicable. You know what I mean?
Oh, we know very well. We get complaints.
It's interesting how things kind of how your magic changes over the years, and then just the things that you pick up. Like for me, I love ritual work. Like that's my jam. I love the heavy cloaking feeling of the space and feeling the energy all around me and everything. And I'm very I like the ritual work and like the significance of the little things. And now I find often that I'm almost more on the manifesting just part, where it's just like it seems that the things that I want seem to just happen.
I feel the same way.
Not necessarily like bam, 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 but it's like they happen in a quick enough time frame where it's like, I don't think I had to lift a finger for that to happen.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how things are just changing, I guess.
Yeah. I noticed too, it's like stuff will show up for me and it's stuff I've asked for, but it's like the door is there and you know that there's work associated with it, but it's like, will you actually allow yourself
you have to open
go through that,
allow it to happen to you, otherwise it won't happen if you're turned off to
and
it.
sometimes I don't make that choice because it's like I'm trying to move a certain way to appease other people, It's like, oh, I want you to feel safe around me, you know what I mean? It's like you said you'd be my friend, you're okay with me doing my stuff, but it's like you don't want me to do it when you're around. Or it's like, which I can respect, right? But again, it's putting a limit, it's putting a cap on how fully I can show up in this, because like shit, there was one day I was watching the Candyman, and man, I was watching it with my partner, and what happened was that like there's a part in the movie where if you say his name 3 times in the mirror, he shows up and he just fucking kills you, right? And the TV is facing the mirror that's next to the bed, and the dude's like Candyman, the dude shows up, he's fucking murking him, but like when the name was said the 3rd time, the mirror door actually like swung open. And then I'm just like, okay, like that felt interesting. And then like immediately I'm like, all right, cool, I'm gonna smudge this bitch, I'm gonna do some fucking mantras, I got my skin drum, I got my fucking shakers, I got holy water, like I'm gonna do everything, fuck all this noise. And then like there was a noticeable change like after I did everything, and then I looked at him, I was like, see, aren't you happy I know how to handle this shit now? Because like what the fuck were we gonna do if I didn't? Like just leave?
Right. Yeah. I have that often with like so like a Ouija board, like that's my jam.
Oh yes.
I feel very like a lot of people are like, oh no, like, get me out of this room. They're ready to run, duck, hide, everything. Versus I'm like, no, it's cool. It's cool. Like we're good. Let's do this.
Like, you're like
I have precautions. I have I have all these steps that I do before I get in. And then I go for it. And then I read the energy and I kind of feel it. And if I feel like I'm getting something that I don't want to get, then I shut that shit down. And then I do my whole process. But I've never had anything stay around. Like I'm like, no, we're good. We're good. I know how to shut this shit down.
So for me, like I'm the complete opposite. Like I'm highly sensitive to spirits. Like the Ouija board to me, I'm like, no, I don't need anything else. Like, no, thank you. I'm like, get that out of my sight right now, pretty much.
But there was had like together, and Amy's one rule was that I did not bust it out.
But I've dealt with a lot of like darker spirits and malicious spirits. I've been attacked in my sleep and everything. Like, I know how it is to have like physically been touched. I've had spirits like stroked my hair while I'm laying down. Like my mom, like just like she's just talking about childhood memories. She's like, oh, so I'm just walking past Amy's room and she just has a spirit like laying in bed with her, spooning her. I'm like, why didn't you tell me? Like, why are you allowing this to happen to your child? Like,
honestly, yeah.
I'm just like, no. So
no, sometimes I'm like, hey, like you have a bigger living space than me. Can I like put like a demonic sigil on the floor, sit in it, and like do some chanting to see if I can get possessed in front of a mirror so I can get like, some messages from this fucking thing? And they're like, absolutely the fuck not. Like, what? I'm like, hey man, like don't knock it till you try it. I'm just saying, I'm trying to get like a real clear line of communication. And the other thing too, it's like, I feel like if it's experiential, it's gonna stick way more than if it's just like, I read this in a book, like, don't get me wrong, books are amazing, they're great, but I really feel like it's like the visceral things that you experience that like really, really stick with you.
Yeah. Well, recently, like last year, I had like my cousin Nico and I, because we used to do our TikToks, we did like paranormal lives and everything. And we did one with a haunted doll. And then the haunted doll spirit ended up being obsessed with me and just wouldn't leave me alone. And then Nico was having his own experience too. And it wasn't great. So now I'm done with haunted dolls for a while.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're getting to the ending point. Elith, I'm not sure if you froze or are you still with us? Oh, you might have cut out. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm definitely going to have to connect with you, and I'm kind of interested. I kind of want a reading, so I'll have to follow.
Amber and I have been trying to get like more witches and more people to have another platform. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah. All right. Well, good night, everybody. Have a good rest of your time. We have some things coming up. Some other future witchy individuals that we would love to introduce you to. So stay tuned. And
if anybody else wants to come on again, they're more than welcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, have a good night, everyone.
Good night.